Thursday, everybody. Welcome once again to another Day 4 with the man, Mr. Frank Scalish. Frank, how you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm really good. How are you doing?
Oh, dude, I've got stories.
Uh-oh. That's a good thing.
I've got stories. Last night, people give me all kinds of crap because I talk about the weather on this show. The weather is part of me. You live in Oklahoma, you got to talk about the weather. All right?
I relate.
Last night, and I think it made the national news because there were 3 areas that were dramatically hit last night. San Antonio, Dallas-Fort Worth, and Norman, Oklahoma. Well, I live right on the Norman, Oklahoma border with another town, Tornado HQ, Moore, Oklahoma, where the fastest wind speed was ever measured in the history of the world. Okay? Last night, the most epic hailstorm I've ever seen in my life. Now, I don't know if you guys have hailstorms in Cleveland that often, but dude, let me describe. All right, think of frozen water, obviously ice, hail, the size of grapefruits.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, plus a 70 to 80 mile an hour wind.
How much damage?
Dude, well, we have this thing in Norman called the Magnificent Mile of Cars. There's about 8 dealerships in this mile.
And they're all freaking out now.
There is not a single vehicle left in their inventory unless it was inside on the showroom floor.
Oh, yeah. My brother has a body shop, and, well, he sold them, but he had a body shop. And, dude, those hailstorms were just like, show me the money.
Dude, they were estimating, the early estimates, like I got up early and I was watching the early edition of the news, the local news here. Mm-hmm. Early estimates, $500 million in damage.
Holy moly, man.
With expectations to exceed that number.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was on Lake Douglas one time, and I pulled in right after the hailstorm had come through. Yeah. And actually, what happened was I got to the hotel, and I saw a big awning, and the sky was kind of purple, and I pulled the boat underneath the awning, the boat and the truck underneath the awning, and the hailstorm blew through. And the hail wasn't as big as what you're talking about, but I mean, it was, nickel and quarter size hail. And it literally was like tearing the plastic aluminum siding off this building when it would hit it. It was like just watching stuff just get demolished.
Hey, with all due respect, all right, but last night on the late night news, I mean, this thing went through, it was around 9 o'clock, and, the news... the news teams just flock to wherever there's storm damage here in Oklahoma. It doesn't matter. But the center of attention was not on the Magnificent Mile of Cars, where there's millions and millions of damage. They focused on a Taco Bell. And let me tell you something. Interviewing workers, all right, from Taco Bell that are scared out of their mind was so freaking awesome. They were epic. I would have them on the show right now, pitch hitting for Matt, if they knew a damn thing about bass fishing.
That is outstanding.
And it ruined the Taco Bell. I mean, it just totally destroyed the glass and everything in the Taco Bell, and they're describing the action that's taking place. Meanwhile, you got like $50 million in automobiles just right next door that are completely demolished, and they're focusing on the Taco Bell.
Yeah, decimated. Hey, because in every crisis, man, you got to eat.
Oh my gosh, it was so awesome. And those ladies that were interviewed off the cuff, epic. They were freaking just awesome. It was so cool how they described that squall line of 80 mile an hour wind and hail the size of grapefruits.
That's unbelievable.
Rolling through Norman.
Dude, if one of those hits you, you're history.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Okay. Now here's the rest of the story. The rest of the story is last night was the very final night of the league that I bowled in before my accident. Right? I haven't bowled. I haven't even been close to a bowling center since my accident. Last night was the last night of league, and the guys called me up and they said, "Hey man, you want to come by the last night of league?" And I was like, "You know what, man? I just don't, because I don't want to be around that vibe. I just, it's just me.
Sure.
It's kind of like you've been injured. It was really important to you. I'm just not ready to be around it yet." Well, guess where the bowling center is located?
Next to the Taco Bell.
Next to the Taco Bell. My truck would have been destroyed last night if I would have decided to go. And dude, they're throwing pictures out on social media. Windshields knocked out. It looks like somebody took a hammer and just went to town on the hood, the roof, side. I'm telling you, it's going to be one of the most expensive non-tornado storms in the history of Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is because of the magnificent mile of cars.
Well, yeah, but dude, that's a lot of damage.
Oh, I know. Now, I see people on the YouTube comments. Somebody were asking, "Hey, isn't Brad Hallman from Norman?" He moved from Norman. He's actually located in a town that's way north of Oklahoma City. So he still has a house, which probably had a little bit of roof damage, maybe.
Oh, sure it did.
But they're not living in it. That's not where they live. It's just empty right now. So, yeah. Man, Norman, Oklahoma, forget about the Sooners and the University of Oklahoma right now. The center of attention is the magnificent mile. And if I get some pictures, dude, I'm going to send you some.
Yeah,
I have to drive right by there to go to school. And I did not intend for this show to be the Norman, Oklahoma Storm Damage Control Center. That's not what I'm trying to do. But this is a once in a lifetime situation that I'm not kidding you, dude. It's kind of like having the fish hooked up on one little bitty hook on 6 hooks, 2 sets of treble hooks. Well, guess what? Where we are, we're like the other treble hook that had nothing on it.
Man, well,
that's how close we were to this.
That's how those storms roll. When I was traveling all the time, I took pictures of storms that I was either caught in or, crazy stuff that I would see out on the lake or on the road. And I was building this photo bank I had funnel clouds, water spouts. I was on Lay Lake practicing for one of the first classics, and a wind shear ripped through the side of the hill and literally was snapping trees like toothpicks. Yeah. And I got pictures of all of this stuff. And I was going to make a calendar of all these storms, and I got a virus in my computer way back in the day, and it ate everything I had, and I lost probably 8 years worth of storm photography. Geez. Yeah, and it's my fault because I didn't back anything up.
Yeah.
Back then I didn't back anything up.
Wow.
So I was sick to my stomach because I had a picture. I was on Okeechobee, and literally it was pouring down rain 5 feet to my right. And when you look to the left, it was sunny and beautiful. It was the coolest picture I ever took. So what I did was I turned my boat around and I drove into the rain.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, dude, it was just like you were in a shower. I spun the boat around and I idled out of the rain, and it was like I was in the sunny Florida. It was the craziest thing. So I tried to get the boat half and half and take the picture of it.
Yeah.
And you could almost see the rain coming down and the sunshine on the other side. It was really a badass photo. And I was really bummed out when I lost them all, because I was really I wanted to put together something really nice, since we're talking about weather. This was all weather related.
All right. I got to ask you, I'm a big dude. All right. 6'4". There's no way that I could ever fit into a rod locker, but I have heard numerous stories about guys getting caught in hailstorms on the water, and they get in their rod locker. Did you ever do that?
Yeah, I got caught in a hailstorm, but ironically enough, it was Lay Lake, and I had launched at the dam, and I ran all the way up the river, and the storm blew through. That's where I saw the wind shear, but the storm blew through, and it started dropping hail the size of quarters, and it hurt. So I put my helmet on, and ran into a cove, and there was a boat dock in this cove high enough where I could get underneath it. So I slid the boat. I got on the deck of my boat and I belly crawled it underneath the dock.
Yeah.
Except for my outboard, obviously. And the hail was hitting the dock. It was so loud. It was so loud that it was actually frightful.
Oh,
well,
geez.
when I looked through the cracks in the dock wood, I was in a real steep valleyed pocket, and the trees were literally going bending off like that over the dock I was under. So I'm like, I'm out of here. So yeah, I put the helmet back on. I put my rain gear on. I put everything I had on, and I started to leave that pocket, and I couldn't even run down the lake. It hurt so bad when you got pelted with these things. So I was idling and idling and idling. And then finally I got out of the hail. I put it up on plane and I ran back to the dam. Dude, when I got to the dam, it was like sunny and 80 and there were guys fishing there. And I go, and I was soaked. I mean, soaked. I go, didn't you guys get, they go, it never even got a cloud over here.
Wow.
Yeah. So you're talking about that line, you know what I mean? That you're on that fine line where you're in the storm and you're out of the storm. Those guys up at the lower section of the lake never even saw a cloud, dude.
Wow.
Oh, it was unbelievable.
All right. So enough of the weather talk, but folks, I'm telling you, if you get a chance, if you're bored out of your mind, do a Google search and look at Norman, Oklahoma storm damage. And some of the pictures, dude, I've never seen automobiles
just wrecked
with every window blown out. And seriously, it looks like somebody has just taken a hammer and beat the crap out of the entire car.
Oh, yeah,
it
dude, it's
unreal.
crazy.
Unreal. So definitely, like I said, I mean, early estimates, they're talking around $500 million in damage. I think it's going to go higher because there's a lot more residential damage than what a lot of people saw last night. They're going to open the door and look outside and go,
oh, they're going to freak out.
Gosh.
It's going to be, they're going to freak out, dude, because they have, if they were in it, there's no doubt they heard it. You know what I mean?
Oh,
there's
yeah, it
no
was
doubt
crazy.
they heard it. So,
all right, a couple other housekeeping items, and then we are going to get into part 2 of the Carolina Rig Show. Really important, folks. We're going commercial free today. We always go commercial free on day 4. The reason for that is the fine folks over at LureNet. They sponsored the entire show here on day 4, and everything that Frank talks about, on the most part, is available over on what did I just say? LureNet.com. See, I have an excuse. I was thinking about something else, but man, I'm telling you, ever since my accident, my brain I go scatterbrain sometimes. Anyway, LureNet.com, that's where you can get all the stuff. Make sure you check it out. It definitely is the place to go for all the stuff, the vast majority of the stuff that Frank talks about.
Yeah,
right?
Then the paint shop right now, speaking of LureNet, on the paint shop right now, they got the deep little ends in Holy Shad, which is a color that I painted really good in the clear watercolors. It's fantastic. And they got the deep baby N in Diamond Craw.
Yeah.
And the deep baby N is an overlooked lure that really needs to be fished. It catches a ton of fish, and they got it in Diamond Craw. They have a really super color in a Bandit 100 right now called Yellow Shad. That's pretty sweet too. So
cool.
Just check it out.
Make sure you check it out. All right. And that's the reason why we go commercial free on Thursdays. All right. One other side note, actually 2 more side notes. The first one is through Friday, and I know LureNet is a big sponsor and the title sponsor of this show, but I got to mention, because we didn't have a show on Wednesday. Oh, and by the way, I did fantastic in front of the kids giving the speech. I was not heckled at all. Not at all. Now, I did have to call out a couple of kids. All right,
for
not paying
misbehavior.
for not paying attention.
Oh, you gotta get them for that,
dude. That drives me absolutely insane when you're making a speech or doing a presentation and somebody over here is doing something else.
Oh yeah, like me just 5 minutes ago looking at a text.
No, that's all good.
But I had to, because you know why I had to?
Why?
Because it was LureNet.
Oh. All right, there you go.
I made some prototypes and sent them in, and they were texting me that they haven't gotten them yet.
All right, very funny.
So,
yeah, you should have seen the look on these two kids' face when I went throwdown on them.
Well, yeah, because realistically, you called them out in public.
Oh yeah, but
And
I didn't
that's-
say anything bad to them.
No,
it's like,
but
look, dude, you're getting ready to go to high school. First thing you need to learn about going to high school is respect. And when somebody else is talking, that means you be quiet.
you pay attention is what it means.
Anyway, so
Yeah.
it was good, man. It was a really good turnout, and had some cool things happen yesterday from a school perspective, looking toward the future. Great, largest 8th grade class in like 30 years for this
That's
school
good.
district.
That's good
Yeah.
for the school.
Yeah, really good for the school. So that's why we didn't have a show on Wednesday. So I have to remind everybody, with all due respect to LureNet, that we launched a special for the first time in the history of BTL. All right, and if you're in the market for new reels, you can get 25% off on the entire Paradigm series of reels over on ducketfishing.com. I'm actually going to extend it one day because we didn't have a show on Wednesday because I was telling and shaping the minds of today's youth
Of
on
our youth.
Wednesday. Yeah. So
Hey, 25% off is a good deal on a reel.
yeah, and they're
that's
fantastic reels, a lot of improvements. For the 2 hours that I've been able to get on the water, I actually used them for the first time, and super, super good product. So 25% off. It's the first time that we've done anything like this in the history of BTL. So, hey, support the sponsors that make this show happen. Support the sponsors that help Matt and I go forward with what we want to accomplish in the industry, especially Matt. Me, I'm pretty much done. I just like to talk about it. So you are supporting the fact that I am able to talk about one of the greatest games in the world.
And
bass
you can
fishing.
talk.
So
You
I can try.
talk. You do a good job.
I can talk a little bit. All right. So please check out over on Ducket Fishing, Paradigm Reels, 25% off through midnight Friday. And it's a great deal, great reel. Both the spinning reels and the bait casting reels, you get 25% off. All right, moving on. Now, last thing, and then we're going to jump into it, Frank. Another first for BTL. All right, and I always try to get creative. That's the one thing that's kind of kept me going in the 25 plus years that I've covered this game is I always try to get creative and do something that a whole lot of other people haven't done. Well, thanks, and I'm not taking the credit for this. This was not my idea. This actually came from a fan, and I don't have the email in front of me, but it was just a fantastic idea. They said, why don't you contact and see if you can get the judge, marshal, whatever you want to call it. I don't know what the official name is. Maybe it's the official name of the official.
Aren't they marshals?
I don't know what they are over on the bass side. All right, because at Lake Fork it was a different situation because they were weighing the fish. Remember? Okay. The Elite Series that was at Lake Fork. The suggestion was, hey, why don't you see if you can get the official that was with Lee Livesey on the final day when he had 43 pounds and get his or her take on what went down that entire day. Great idea.
It's probably going to be a wholly exploitative.
Great idea. And I got to find that email because I want to give that fan props, which just goes to show you fans, if you have an idea, hey, shoot me an email. I may not get back to you immediately, but just a fantastic idea. So on Monday, with guest host Ken Duke, on Monday, we are going to have the official that was with Lee on that final day of the Elite Series on Lake Fork. And that's a first for us. We've never had somebody that was an official on the final day with somebody that just ran off and caught 43 pounds on a topwater, Frank.
Yeah, and a spook, no less. Honest to God, that you're going to get a firsthand play-by-play of that day from that marshal.
Yeah.
It's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
I just can't even imagine, going chug, 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 whoosh, 7-pounder, chug, chug, whoosh, another 7-pounder.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, Levacy was hammering on.
Oh, it was crazy, crazy. Anyway, her name is Holly Keene, and somebody put it on the comments over on the YouTube page. Yes, Holly Keene will be joining us on Monday and just get her perspective on that incredible day on a topwater, dude.
That's fantastic. That is fantastic.
Not a Carolina rig, but a topwater and a vintage old saltwater spook.
Yeah, those saltwater spooks are nice, man. They're a little bigger.
Yeah.
I actually have a bunch of them. I like the bone one the best.
Yeah.
But man alive, dude, they catch them. They catch them. Smallmouth too, if you can believe it or not.
Really?
I throw that thing on Oneida and catch a lot of big smallmouth on that.
Yeah. All right. And then the last thing, our final show of the week, I just want to mention also, if you did not watch or listen to the Matt Becker show, the dude that won the TWPC on Lake Murray, you need to go back and listen to that, because some of the stuff that he talked about was some of the best juice that has ever been given on this show about how to catch those fish on blueback heron lakes. It was impressive, dude.
Yeah, I'm gonna rewatch that one too.
Yeah.
You know, you're never too good a fisherman to learn something.
Yeah.
And when I see stuff like that, I'll watch it several times because I want to make sure I don't miss something.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So we're kind of deep into the show today, but I keep saying the last thing. Here's the other thing. Right?
It's never going to end.
No. We're going to get into it, folks. Please be patient. But I have to let everybody know because it may happen. I have the door of the studio open. All right? This is a first for BTL again. I have the door of the studio open. My house is located, 50 yards from the studio. There is a possibility that I may have to run to the house to take care of a visitor that I'm supposed to have that was supposed to be here at 8 o'clock, of which, man, refrigerators are expensive, dude.
Oh, yeah.
They are expensive.
Make no bones about it.
All right, I've had this refrigerator for less than a year, and it's already broke.
Yeah, well, that happens, and I'll tell you, I try to find out what's broken on it, and then I go on YouTube and I look up the repair, and then I call a parts store and buy the parts, and I fix them myself. I do.
Dude, I can't do that.
Yes, you can.
I can barely change out hooks. What are you talking about?
Oh my gosh, you can easily do that. So I fix all the appliances in my house. And,
you need to make a call. Anyway, he or she quite possibly might walk to the door of the studio.
That's
and
fine.
Frank, you'll have to carry on with part 2. So,
and just remember, when you're not in the studio, we're talking about you.
Oh, I'm sure you are. All right, making fun of my weather conversation, right?
We've been in this for 20 minutes. We haven't talked about a fish yet.
I know. Dude, I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. It just happens. That's why some of the shows are 90 minutes, or longer, is because I get on this tangent.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, dude, that storm last night was epic. It was unfreaking believable. Unbelievable.
Folks, stay with us because this show is going for 3 hours today.
All right. I think I've got everything out of the way. I'm sure something will pop into my, jelloed up brain here in a minute if there's any things.
I'm sure.
So, dude, man, Carolina rigging part 2. What are we going to dive into today?
Well, I want to talk about this storm that happened here. No. I am going to dive into where to fish this thing and what to look for today. Yeah, this is going to be very in depth, and I'm going to try to, I don't want to say simplify it, but make it really easy to understand, because when it comes to structure fishing, I'm always thinking ahead of myself. And at times I know what I'm thinking and I might overlook something. So I'm going to try to keep it really simple. So, if you have a question or something, rifle it in and we'll get to the questions. I'll try not to overlook anything. And so should we get started?
Yeah, let's roll
all right,
it, man.
Let's get started. Okay. So this is all off the top of my head. This is not done with notes of any kind. So I'll try to follow some chronological order. And here we go. All right. So first off, we're going to go, since the spawn is winding down in a lot of places. Some places it's getting started. Up north, it's getting started. Down south, it's winding down. So we'll go with the southern tier, because this will apply up north in a little while. So the spawn is over. We're in the post-spawn stages. And what I want to do is, in post-spawn, I'll take big creeks and I'll break down big creeks and make them into little lakes. But because you're in post-spawn, and I'll say post-spawn early summerish, but really the fish are just starting to leave the banks. Okay. So here's what I got for you.
All right.
Look at this, guys.
Oh, I need to blow this up. Hang on.
Oh, uh-oh.
Hang on here. Let me see if I can figure out. Here. There we go. Oh, look at that.
So it's a really crude, it's a really crude, simple map, okay? So basically what I have is like spawning areas labeled.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I'll do is I'll go to a spawning area where I know they're spawning, and I'll take the first structural element that comes out towards the creek, the main creek. The blue thing is the main creek ledge.
Right.
So this is where I'll start Carolina rigging. And I like inside swings this time of year. I like the inside swings, so I'll concentrate there. But I'm going to fish this around because you just never know. So I'm going to fish it around, and I'm going to pay attention to everywhere it swings. Okay, and I'm going to follow it out of the creek. Follow it out of the creek. This spot right here, they spawn in here. This spot right here touches the main creek channel, so this spot will be good longer after the spawn. All right.
Yeah.
Now this is a creek. I just broke it down. I made it really simple because there'll be a lot more stuff going on. This is a high spot right here. The green is land, so that's like an island, but you'll still want to fish. You'll still want to fish the swings on the island. So if you can see, I'm concentrating on anywhere the structure makes a turn. And I'm concentrating on where the contour lines get tight together, because that's the steepest part. Okay? I always look for the steepest part, because a lot of times what's going to happen on those steep areas, you're going to have rock, rubble, or debris that piles up on there. If the wind blows it in a corner, it piles up on there, sinks down, and then of course that's where the creek current always hits, so it wears the mud away and you get harder bottom in those areas. Right. So that's what I'm going to concentrate on.
All right, check this out. From Josh, he asks, wouldn't these spots be both good pre and post spawn?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the same migration route the fish use to go in as they used to come out. It's the same stuff, okay? I'm not really going to go into the pre-spawn thing now, but anything that's good post-spawn is usually good pre-spawn, because the fish use the same contour lines in and out of these creeks.
All right, okay. Frank, quick question, because your doodle map there was impressive.
Dude, that was like a 10-minute illustration while we were bloviating before the show went on.
That was very impressive. Now, what makes those areas even better has to be if they have a little bit of structure on it, be it a rock pile, be it a brush pile, be it
cover,
whatever.
Yeah, cover. Structure is what the bottom does. Cover is what's on the bottom.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So anytime you're Carolina rigging, anytime you come into cover, brush, rocks, old barn foundations, old house foundations, it makes the spot even sweeter. Okay. Now that's the post spawn time, and that's in a creek. And you could follow them right out of the creek right to the main lake, okay? Now, I'll get into exactly how I'm fishing this stuff in a minute. So let's go to, and this is we'll go to the main lake, and basically what I did here was, one more time, I made a little, I can't even see this. I made a little main lake action. The blue being the main river channel, and then this one's a secondary river channel. There's the creek coming out. So in the post spawn early summer, I'm going to concentrate on areas by the secondary creek channel and coming out of the main creek arm.
Okay.
You don't understand. My screen is backwards, so when I move my hand, I don't even know where it's going. so that for all intensive purposes, the stuff in yellow, okay, is going to be my early summer post spawn stuff.
Right.
Same thing. I'm looking for swings, sharp contour breaks, and edges. As summer progresses and the fish are done spawning and they're done with the post spawn, they start to move out to stuff that's not really connected to the mainland. And here again, I'm looking at sharp turns, steep breaks. I like the steep breaks because you find more stuff on them, although some of the shallower transitional stuff that peters out has good debris and good stumps and stuff on them. So you don't want to overlook that. As you can see here, that where's my pen at? As you can see here, this is coming out of a creek. It's got a really good turn on it. This is good post spawn and early summer right through the summer. A spot like this will be good. And you see I'm working it all the way down till it peters out.
Yeah.
And then this is a good pre-spawn spot in here. Whoops. I can't see. But anyway, in there where the thing is. Now, if you come back here, this is even more summery stuff back here.
Yeah.
Because now it's not connected to anything at all. And so this is the stuff that I look for in the middle of summer, is the stuff that's out here.
Okay.
So that just gives you guys a kind of a quick overrun of, and of course I put a lot of stuff in real close together because I don't have room to show you a real map. Yeah. But so anyhow, so that's kind of how we break that down. Now here's the neat thing about this. Okay, so when I pull up on one of those inside swings, I first fish it traditionally. I keep the boat deeper, I cast up shallower, and I start dragging the rig down. Okay. And I'm usually casting at a 45 so I can keep it going down the slope more gradual than straight down the slope. Mm-hmm. Keep it going down. I pay attention to if I get a bite. I want to know two things. I want to know how deep that bite came. And I want to know, did he hit it when I was moving it, or did he hit it when I stopped it to pick up my slack? All right. Those are the two main things. Now, conversely, let's say I go on a piece of structure and I'm fishing it and I don't get bit, but I might see some fish on my locator. I'll take the boat and I'll swing around and I'll make a completely different angle on it. So I might be throwing completely across it, or I might put my boat shallow and throw deeper and drag up the break. Okay. Angle is critical. I've seen situations where I'm Carolina rigging, and if I make the same cast over and over again, I can keep catching them. As soon as I change that cast, I don't catch them. So I always pay attention to my angle. So when I make a cast, I'll take a land reference to where I just cast, and then I'll know if I get one, I got to keep casting to that land reference to get the bite. Now, here's another thing. Anytime that I'm fishing the Carolina rig, a lot of times I'll side scan, try to find the sweet spot on it, on that structural thing. I'll try to find the sweet spot. If I find the sweet spot, what I'll do is I'll put a flag icon down for boat position. If it's too shallow, I'm not going to run it over with the boat. If it's deeper than 15 feet, I'll let the boat slide over the top of it, and then I'll mark the exact piece of structure. So now I have a flag down for a boat position. So when I come up to that later in the day or in a tournament or next time I'm going to fish, I can slide to the boat position and I don't have to run the structure back over. So that's another thing. Now,
nice.
yeah, this is really cool. So it's, Carolina rigging is, well, in my opinion, I love Carolina rig fishing, so I can't say anything bad about it, but it is a science, and you do have to spend time doing it. Remember, you have to change your angles up a lot because you could be on the right area with the right fish and drag it the wrong way and maybe only catch one and not get another one. Change your angle and you put 5 more in the boat. Now, here's another thing about Carolina rigging. I never, ever Carolina rig fish without 2 crankbait rods and a football jig out, because I have seen numerous times. One time in a tournament, which I won, I was Carolina rigging Main Lake River Channel edge, and it had 4 giant stumps on one little corner. And I dragged a rig through the stumps, and I catch one, and it's about 1.5 pounds. I reel them in. I let them go because I got bigger ones in my live well. I cast out again, and I missed the stump. So I was burning the Carolina rig back to the boat to make another cast, and I had a 3.5 pounder run it down at the side of the boat. He missed it, but he chased it. I dropped that down. I picked up my fat-free 7. I threw it out there and culled every single fish I had in 10 casts.
Wow.
So here's my rule of thumb, okay? When I'm fishing in a creek, let's say all my structure is 6 feet to 12 feet. So I'll have my 2 Carolina rig rods out, and I'll have a deep little end on one and a fat free on the other one, a fat free 6, because these get me in that 6 to 10, 6 to 11 foot range. Okay.
Gotcha. Yeah.
As I progress to main lake structure and river channel ledges, then I go to the fat free 7 and the DD22 because they go down deeper.
Right.
All right. And you got to remember this, because there are times when you'll Carolina rig a spot, catch a bunch of fish Carolina rigging, and then you can go back through with your deep diving crankbaits and catch more fish on them. And so when I say I Carolina rig, I do Carolina rig, but I always have my backup lures, because this puts extra fish in your boat. And if you see something like in that one tournament that I saw, where the fish ran the Carolina rig down when I was reeling it into the boat, that tells me they want something faster. So then I pick up the crankbait and clean house. You follow me?
Oh, yeah.
So you have to understand, Carolina rigging is in my opinion, it's a science of fishing. It's very accurate. I don't just wing it out and drag it around and hope to catch something. Right. I am very specific about what I'm doing with it. And conversely, if I'm catching them on crankbaits, I always go through with the Carolina rig after, because I always pick up residual fish. So they kind of complement each other. One will do the most damage, one gives you residual fish, either or. Whatever one you're starting with. I've had situations where the Carolina rig was my main pattern and couldn't catch them on anything else. So you just got to experiment with this thing. Again, 6 to 12, Norman deep little end, fat free 6, 12 foot to 17, DD22, and a bomber fat free 7 gets most of the work done for me on that.
All right. Couple of questions. One, a lot of people want to know, are those maps available on LureNet?
That's priceless.
That's awesome.
Whoever said that, my hat's off to you.
That's awesome. See, and you can tell that we are really, really old school, because if there were a couple of young dudes doing this show, Frank, they would have had screenshots of stuff on their graph and everything. No, not us.
No.
We go to the Crayolas and the pencil.
Don't kid yourself, dude. I am a cartographer. No, I'm not a cartographer.
That's awesome. All right, now, I want you to hold that map up again, because I want to ask you a question.
Main lake map?
It doesn't matter, dude. Either one. All right. when you see that map and you talked about angles and, you may catch one fish on a prime spot, prime area, whatever it is, do you think sometimes that people focus too much on the actual point when you have no structure there, and they do not fish, for lack of a better term, down either side? Is that a common mistake?
100%. It's 100%. When I fish places like this, for example, you see I got my fish lines all the way around the entire thing, because you never know where that sweet spot's going to be. Okay. So and I'll be honest with you, I've run into situations too where I've been structure fishing and a guy will run out, he'll bop around for 20 minutes and he'll leave. And I'm like, well, okay, that's good for me because you bailed. You know what I mean? Yeah. But what happens is they don't have a lot of people that aren't accustomed to living offshore, so to speak, bail too fast. Like in a tournament situation when I'm practicing and it's an offshore bite, I try to find 2 places every day that have fish on them. Now that might mean I'm hitting 15 or 16 places, but I try every day to find at least 2 places that have fish on them. So here's what happens. By the end of my 2.5 days of practice or 3 days of practice, depending on how much we get, I'll have anywhere between 9 and a dozen actual fish holding areas. Okay. Then in the tournament, I go to the best one first, always. And then I round robin from there. I just start bopping back and forth on them all. Because every now and then you're going to run into a situation where you're just not on it when the fish are feeding. They might have picked up and suspended off of it, or they're not running current if it's a current-generated lake. So I bop around. I just keep going from spot to spot to spot. And then what happens is all of a sudden you pull up on a spot that you might have hit 2 times earlier in the day and load the boat. I mean, that's how structure fishing works. For the most part, if there's a good gang of fish on it, when you pull up on it, you're catching them. But if I don't catch them and they were there, they didn't just vacate. They don't just leave it in an hour. So I come back to it. And that's usually how I do it. But I see a lot of guys, they pull up on the very tip of the point, make half a dozen casts and leave. And they're on to the next. Or conversely, they go back to the bank and start throwing square bills and spinnerbaits. Yeah. But structure fishing requires a lot of work. It's not, especially for guys that are just going to start venturing out. It's not something you're just going to pick up in an hour. You're going to have to spend days doing it and getting your confidence level up. And then you start to recognize things immediately. A lot of times I'll side scan by something or even graph it vertically, and I'll know right away if it's going to have potential or not potential, just based on what I see off of my locator. And sometimes I find something offshore that's not producing fish today, but I'll mark it in my GPS because structure never goes away. I'll mark it in my GPS, and then I'll check it periodically through different times in the post spawn through the summer, because at one point in time there's going to be fish on that thing. All right. And so then I'll check it.
All right, man. One of the old school things that I still do, and I don't know how many people still do it, especially the young anglers, because everybody's so dialed in from an electronic standpoint. But is this method that I'm going to ask you about something that is forgotten, that if you utilize it the correct way, it could help you out tremendously? And what I'm talking about is marker buoys, all right? The yellow, the orange, the lime things with the line and the weight. If you can identify where that piece of structure is, or what did you call it, Frank? I always say structure all the time. Cover, all right? Or structure, either one. And you throw that marker buoy off, and then you back off of it. In other words, you might, let it, I used to call it let it relax for a few minutes. But that marker buoy is really there to help you out to where you can make that good angle cast to that point that you know that the fish are at. Is that like a lost thing, or is that something that is still useful and really beneficial when it comes to fishing a specific area?
I used to carry 9 or 10 buoys with me.
Oh my gosh.
Before we had GPSs. And then what I would do is I would idle over the structure, and I would drop buoys and keep dropping buoys. I'd keep idling up and down the brakes, and every time something different happened, I would drop another buoy. Then I would back the boat off of it, and I would look and see how my buoys turned and twist. And then I would give me a good idea of where I need to be. I used to rely heavily on buoys. Not so much today anymore, because if you use your electronics right, you don't really need them. It's still helpful, and I still do as many. I only have 4 in the boat. But here's the thing. When you talked about dropping the buoy on the cover, what I usually do is, once I locate the cover on the structure, I slide the boat off the cover and drop a buoy parallel to the cover, but about 15 feet away from it.
Well, yeah, that's the point that I was trying to make, is you're not putting the buoy right on where you want to make the cast. What it is a visual
reference
point, right, to where you know exactly where to throw from an angle standpoint based upon where that buoy is.
100%. 100%. For guys just starting out, the buoy's going to be your best friend. Because look, if you're not used to structure fishing, there's a solid chance that you're not using your GPS properly either. And so it's hard to gauge how far away from something you are on your GPS if you're not really familiar with it. Like the boat that I got had Lowrances on it, and I used to use Humminbirds. Back in the old days, I used nothing but Lowrance, and then I switched to Humminbird. Now, because the new boat was all set up for Lowrance equipment, I just have, touch 12s and 10s on it. I had to get used to the Lowrance distance wise. Like with my birds, I can line up on something, make a cast, and by the second, third cast, I'm hitting what I need to be hitting. When I was down in North Carolina this year, I had some brush piles marked, and when I slid up to the waypoint, it took me multiple casts to figure out exactly how far I was. Once I got the distance down on my GPS, then I didn't have any problems anymore. But if I had a buoy, I could have slid by it, dropped the buoy, turned the boat around, hit it, picked up the buoy and left. It's quicker. But now that I'm familiar with the Lowrance again, it's no big deal. But the buoys make life simple. I mean, they really make it simple.
Yeah, and for those people that are just starting out, throwing the Carolina rig, it's a great way to get tuned in and dialed in on really making the proper cast from an angle perspective.
Correct.
On the structure that you're trying to capture and the fish are sitting on. So I'm a buoy dude, man.
No,
I still use them. Yeah.
You're 100% on the money. That buoy sitting out there when you're in the middle of nowhere gives you such a great reference point that you could literally fish around your objects and be accurate every time, and you're changing your angle because the buoy position is different. So you're changing the angle the way you need to be going. So I mean, I recommend it highly. I still chuck buoys out today, especially when I find something new that I haven't fished before. Because a lot of times I'll start fishing down the break line to see if there's something tiny little thing going on, and I'll leave the buoy where I started. So then when I catch one, I turn around, I look at the buoy, I go, oh man, I'm 55 feet away from this buoy. I got to look over here because that looks really good where the buoy is, but there's something sweet right here. You know what I mean? And today's electronics, man alive, dude. We didn't have this stuff before,
I know. I remember back in the day, there was a team here in Oklahoma that were big time Carolina riggers. I mean, they won so much money, and their buoys, they painted them in camouflage.
Yeah, I did that.
As you're going by, you can't really, I mean, that big orange blob that's in the water, normally you can see that. But if you camo them up,
yes,
you can't see them when you're close to the area. But when you're using them, you definitely know where they are. So something out there. I mean, I know everybody's into spending, thousands of dollars on electronics, but there is a $5 piece of plastic with a weight on it and a string that could really, really, really help you out when you're trying to fine tune and learn and improve your Carolina rigging.
Yeah, I recommend it highly. I recommend it. In fact, if you're starting to do this, you need buoys because they'll make your life so easy.
Yeah.
They'll make your life super easy.
Yeah.
Lindy's got a nice buoy package. Easy to use. You drop them, they roll out, and and here's another trick with the buoys, since you guys are going to be new at the buoy game too. Here's a neat little trick. Let's say you're dropping your buoys in 15 feet of water. Okay. As long as it's not a hurricane outside. Let's just say you're dropping your buoys in 15 feet of water. What I'll do is the first buoy I drop, I'll let it roll out till it hits the bottom. I'll pull 5 feet of line out and then I'll loop it to the buoy system so no more line could come out. This way, if the wind's blowing and the buoy's drifting, it's not unraveling as the wind blows. Because if you have 150 feet of line on that thing, the buoy could be 100 feet away from where you need to be. So I'll just make a loop on it and cinch it down to the roller. So I even had buoys where I put certain amount of string on them too. So when I'm fishing shallower, I throw the shallower, the ones with less string on them out. This just eliminates problems for you guys.
Hey, guess what, man? Ray, my repair technician, has just entered the studio.
All right.
So let's do this, Frank. I'm getting a lot of questions on the instant feedback. A lot of the stuff that you're asking was actually on part 1. All right. So to cover some time here, you definitely want to go back and watch part 1 that Frank did last week. But to cover while I go take care of my refrigerator, Frank, you might go into some of the tactics, like some of the questions are, does bead color matter? Does leader length matter? What's the best soft plastic? A lot of this was discussed on the very first show, part 1, last week. So if you want to do that, Frank, that will cover some time while I take care of the refrigerator.
Okay, you go take care of your refrigerator, and I'll do what I can here.
All right, here, I'm going to throw 2 out at you real quick, and then I'm going to go.
All right.
Let's see here. Patrick wants to know, does the bead color matter? And then Tyler in Alabama wants to know, what is the one plastic on a Carolina rig that you would use? All right, so you can go into the baits and leaders and beads and all that, and then I'll be back in a few minutes.
All right.
I
gotcha. Okay, so the bead color we covered on the first part 1 episode. So here's what I'm going to tell you. I use an orange bead or a black bead. The bead color doesn't matter to me. I just don't use a white one. I go to the craft store to buy my beads because they're way less expensive. And also I'll take a bead with a little bigger hole in it. I don't want the bead so tight that it just barely fits on your leader line. I want it so it goes over my knot, so it's not continually smashing into my knot. That's pretty much it with the beads. It's pretty simple. Now, this question about the soft plastics. It's crazy because I use several different types of soft plastics for several different reasons. One thing I'll do is I'll use a Yum spine craw, and I don't have them here because I covered it on the first part 1, but it has a real tight, fast claw action. It's a little bit longer than a speed craw. It's not fatter than a speed craw. It's just a little bit longer than a speed craw. And I like that because it gives me a lot of back body movement. When I'm Carolina rigging, I get more of the bait doing all this kind of stuff when I'm pulling it. I always have one of those rigged on. The other thing I have rigged on all the time is a lizard. My favorite two colors are green pumpkin purple, and I use a yum lizard for that. And I always have some translucent watermelon type, watermelon candy type thing. As far as dyeing the tail goes, if I dye the tail, I only dye a tiny bit, like 1/4 of an inch of it, and I won't dye the tail at first. But if I'm not getting a lot of bites, I'll dye the tail. That's pretty much it for the soft plastics. I mean, the Christie Critter is a fantastic big fish bait. I drag that around a rig a lot. My probably go-to color in that bait is green pumpkin shadow, because that gives me green pumpkin blue, but it also gives me a darker black blue back. So that's it for the soft plastics. Mark's back, but I'm going to hit. He's back, but I'm going to hit leader length real quick.
Okay.
Leader length, 18 to 22 inches. Sometimes I'll go 24 inches. I never really go ever longer than that. I had a fan DM me the other day on his Carolina rigging situation, and he was having a lot of problems snagging it up all the time and not getting fish. And I wound up going back and forth with him, and it turns out he's using a 4.5 to 5 foot leader.
Oh, wow.
And so I'm like, whoa, we got way too much going on back there. And so, because what happens is, if you'll get a sinker bite from time to time, you'll be dragging that sinker around, it's clicking and clacking and kicking up debris on the bottom, and the bass comes up to it, especially smallmouth, and it looks just like a crayfish rooting around, and they pop the sinker a couple times. Well, if you got a 5 foot leader, that fish is going to be paying so much attention to your sinker, he's never going to see your bait. But if you got 18 to 22 inches, here, look, that's only as long as the fish is.
Yeah. So
if he comes in and pecks at your sinker and you're sliding it along, all of a sudden, your spine crawls in his face going, ha ha, he smokes it. So that's the other reason I use a shorter leader.
All right, there you have it. And once again, I don't know if you mentioned in part one, there is a great deal of video stuff where Frank actually goes through the setup to where you can see it, hook, sinker, swivel, everything like that. So if you haven't looked or checked out part one, you need to do that, because he goes into deep stuff on that.
The super trick. Don't forget about the super tackle.
That's big time. That's big time, man. Can't wait to try that. All right, real quick. I'm curious, Frank, what has been, in your tournament experience at the highest level, what has been your favorite lake to Carolina rig on? And I didn't mean to stump you, man.
Yo, you're not stumping me, dude, but I got a whole lot of just coming right into mind. Yeah. Champlain, Oneida, any lake in Texas, as long as the spawn is over.
Yeah.
Douglas in Tennessee, Table Rock. I've had great Carolina rig days on Table Rock.
Yeah.
Just anywhere I'm on smallmouth fisheries. I like the Carolina rig a lot.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter to me. Even some of the river systems are not bad. But yeah, I mean, my favorite lake to Carolina rig fish on, honestly, is any lake I'm catching them on the Carolina rig.
That's awesome. That's good stuff there. All right, real quick, I want to make sure people know the bead thing, and we mentioned this on part one. Somebody had the comment, I can only find clear beads.
That's fine.
We gave you a nugget, though, that you need to check out your local craft store. The Hobby Lobby is where I get all my stuff from. Folks, you can get 500 beads for like $1.
It's ridiculous. I mean, you're getting more than you could go through in a lifetime.
Yeah. So check out. Yeah. They need to check out their local craft store on the whole bead situation. How about this? What do you think the most common mistake that people utilize the Carolina rig?
The most common mistake that I see is they're using way too long of a leader. I always use a 3/4 ounce weight. I very rarely ever use anything heavier. I think a lot of times they'll use something too heavy.
Yeah.
Leader length is a problem, and if you use a fluorocarbon leader, that's a problem too, because fluorocarbon sinks. So I only use monofilament for a leader because monofilament has a tendency to float a little bit nicer, and it keeps the bait doing whatever it's supposed to be doing. I don't want to say it's a mistake not to use braid as a main line, because fluorocarbon for your main line will work. Even monofilament for your main line will work, but you got to understand something. Monofilament has a lot of stretch to it.
Yeah.
Fluorocarbon has much less stretch to it. Braid has zero stretch.
Yeah.
Okay. So with braid, if you move your rod a foot, you're moving the bait a foot. So with braid on the Carolina rig, I don't reel down and hammer on the fish because I'm using a 7.5 foot rod. So I'm sweeping that thing probably 6 or 7 feet when I set the hook. You'll break your leader line or you'll pull the hook out of the fish. I mean, so when I set the hook with the Carolina rig rod, because I'm using braid, I just tighten down to the fish and pull while I'm reeling, and I got them. And literally, I'm probably 99% success rate in land, hook to land ratio with it. So, those are probably the most common mistakes I've made. I watched a guy Carolina rigging, and he was setting the hook like he was fishing a worm. He'd reel down to it and set it up over his head, and all he's doing is making that sinker pop up off the bottom, and he's barely moving any line. So he's losing a lot of fish. So you reel down to him, it gets tight, keep reeling, and just sweep the rod, and you got him. You don't have to do crazy stuff, especially with the braid.
Yeah.
I worked out a lot of the kinks on this technique because it is one of my all-time favorites.
All right, a couple more questions. Several people want to know, what about on river systems when you have current? Do the same applications apply as your little map?
Yes, the same applications apply, but here's something that you need to take into account, especially if they're smallmouth on this river system. Active smallmouth a lot of times feed on the upcurrent side of structure. So the side that the current's rolling in against is where they're feeding. Now you have to remember something. As the structure comes up and the current hits the structure, it creates an eddy in front of it. So the fish could sit in there really well. Even though there's current, they can sit in there really well. I've seen this 1,000 times steelhead fishing. You won't believe how fish could sit in a current area that you could barely walk across, and these fish aren't hardly moving, and they're just sitting in front of a giant boulder. So there's always an eddy break as the current changes on that structure. But smallmouth have a tendency to feed on the upcurrent side of the structure. And then if I'm targeting largemouth, I will fish both the lee side of it and the upcurrent side, because if they're taking refuse out of the current, they'll go to the lee side, and then I can pick them apart on the lee side. If they're feeding heavily, they're either on top of the structure or in front of it. And that's the other thing you have to remember too when you're Carolina rigging. You have to decide, and you'll know when you catch fish. Are the fish relating to the top of it, to the base of it where it meets the basin, or are they on the transitional break? That's key to remember. That's why earlier in this episode I said pay attention to where that bite comes from.
Yeah.
How deep you are. Because if your structure tops out at 15 feet and you get bit on top of it, then you know you need to be fishing 15 feet to be getting active bites. So if I'm fishing, let's say I'm fishing a structural element that tops out at 6 feet, I know that if the fish are relating to the 15-foot mark, I'm not going to get bit till I get down to the 15-foot mark. You follow me? Or conversely, if I know I'm getting bitten 15, I can look for any kind of structural element that tops out at 15 feet.
All right. Here's another question. Good question from Poncho. Is Carolina rigging a deep water application only, or can it be utilized for shallow water fishing also?
No, it absolutely can be utilized for shallow water fishing. 100%. I've caught fish on a Carolina rig 3 to 6 feet deep all day long on some instances. Usually it's pre-spawn and early post-spawn. So no, it's not just a deep water application.
Yeah. A lot of comments and questions about getting snagged and using. I mean, it's going to happen. That's one thing that you have to expect when you're using this style.
Yeah, and look, here's something really cool. Okay, if I'm in a tournament and I hang it up and I can't get it out, I break it off. If I'm out practicing and I hang it up, the minute I know that I'm hung, I don't sit there and try and jerk it out because I got 50-pound braid. So the minute I get hung, I don't pull on it. I just cruise the boat over to it, get behind it, and it comes right out. And then I get almost every one of them back. So,
Yeah. All right. Here's another one. Do you consider the Mojo rig a form of Carolina rig?
Yeah, absolutely. The Mojo rig is the first real finesse Carolina rig. Before the advent of the Mojo weight, I just used to use, 1/8 ounce, 3/8, half ounce egg sinkers. Same principle.
I thought the split shot rig was really kind of the original, where those guys were taking their line and they were putting 2 or 3 split shots on there and throwing a lizard up shallow.
And actually, that was the advent of the Mojo rig.
Yeah.
Because the last thing I want to do is crimp something on my line. That's the weakest link.
Good point.
Good
point. That's another really good piece of advice, because I myself, I've been guilty of it, especially when frustration sets in.
Oh, yeah.
When you do get hung up, you sit there and you yank it and do and do that. I mean, everything that you're trying to conquer on that particular spot gets destroyed, because whatever you're hung up on, if you could see it underwater, dude, there's freaking dirt and moss and everything else just flying all over the place.
Yeah.
Fish aren't going to hang around that.
No, I try to be as unobtrusive as I can.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I try to be real unobtrusive. And most of the time, if you're rigging deeper than 15 feet, you could slide the boat right over top of that, and those fish don't even know. I mean, they don't care. There's debris floating down lakes all the time. They don't know if it's a tree or a bass boat. We're giving them way too much credit.
They're not that smart. They're not a genius like Frank.
They're not a genius.
Oh, that's good stuff. I have received a couple of emails, and folks, I mean, I'm just getting bombarded, and I'm trying to get back. In fact, that's what I'm going to do this afternoon, is try and respond to a lot of the emails that people have sent. But I did receive a couple of emails that actually took your advice from part 1 and actually went out and had success.
Yeah.
Doing the application. And even one talked about, that's the first time I ever Carolina rigged with braid. And it's amazing.
You're welcome.
Yeah. All because of Uncle Frank. There you have it.
Yeah.
So really good stuff. Yeah. The next BTL clothing, the next BTL merch that we have, we'll definitely have some Frank stuff in there. So
day 4.
Yeah, day 4 stuff will be present in the next merch run that we have.
I'm buying.
Hopefully, other people will buy too. That's kind of the goal and the objective there. What's the best tournament that you can remember that you ever had on a Carolina rig? You ever had 20 on a Carolina rig?
20 pounds?
Yeah, in an elite series.
I got to
remember.
Yeah, I got to think Champlain. I did really good on Champlain, but that was an FLW event.
Okay, well, I mean That is what
I
it is.
potlucked it because I was down there. I'm like, okay, I'm in.
Nice.
Yeah, and I wound up winning 10 grand. And I didn't think they were going to let us go. To be
Yeah.
honest with you, I probably should shut my mouth, but I didn't think they were going to let us go. And it was blowing like I've never seen Champlain do in my life. And we were inside a marina waiting to blast off, and I was getting
Yeah.
seasick in the marina because the boat was going up and down, and I'm like
Oh,
going, oh
geez.
my God, I got to get off this boat. I'm going to yak. And so I said, they're never going to let us go. Well, they let us go. I was like, okay, looks like we're going. So I run out. Everybody got bottlenecked up on this one corner you got to make to get to the main lake. The wind was crushing it, and everybody got bottlenecked up, and it's a shallow flat over there. And I said, I am not going there. We're going that way, and then I'm going to turn around and go that way. So I blew by everybody. I troughed the waves out, turned the boat around, and they were giant waves, okay, like Lake Erie class giant. So I'll never forget it. I had my helmet on, and I said, well, we got a tailing wind, so I can't race them. So I'm just going to have to, drive myself up and down these mountains of water and take my time. So I'm sitting there, and I put my knee on my steering wheel. I took my helmet off. I set it next to me. I grabbed my thermos of coffee. I open it up. I start drinking coffee. I'm driving with my knee. And back then I smoked cigarettes, and I lit up a cigarette, and I was just doing, coffee, cigarette, up these waves. My non-boater's like looking at me. He goes, aren't you scared out of your mind? I go, no, dude, we're fine. So we wound up getting to that spot probably a half an hour before another boat showed up. And by the time the other boats showed up, we both had nice limits of fish, and every one of them was Carolina rig fish. It was all I could do to fish it. I had to throw drift socks out and everything. The wind was just ferocious. And so we wound up Carolina rig fishing, and hammered them. I mean, just hammered them. So,
Yeah. All right, I'm going to throw something out there. This is just something that I don't think anybody's doing. And I'm pretty in tune from a video perspective and especially from a live perspective, what people have going on in this industry. But I'm not perfect, and I might have missed it. But do you think that there's an application out there, Frank? And I mean, be honest, yes or no. A lot of these people out there have never used the Carolina rig. At least some of them are saying that, and they want to get better at it. What if, because of the technology that we have now, all right, specifically some of the technology that we're using and have licensed to use it, how cool would it be, or would it be cool, from a teacher and student perspective, to where when people are out on the water, if they have a good cell signal, that they were actually able to take a live feed and send that live feed while they're trying to fine-tune or learn the Carolina rig, that you were able to actually watch them when they're doing this. And if they're doing something wrong, you could instruct them right then, right there at that moment. And now Uncle Frank is helping somebody out from I would call it a coaching standpoint. And I think that time spent with you one-on-one when they're trying to fine-tune their Carolina rigging or whatever it is would be well worth whatever that the market would ask for that capability of being able to be live with Frank while they're trying to learn and fine-tune their Carolina rigging. Is that really out there, or is that something that might be definitely something that is feasible?
It's logistically, it's possible.
Yeah.
It would be insanely time-consuming, and that's where I think the problem would come in to play because of the time constraint.
Yeah.
But I do have videos on LureNet YouTube. They are instructional videos, and I'm getting ready to do some Carolina rig videos here pretty soon.
Mm-hmm.
I have videos on, crankbait techniques, on flipping techniques, punching grass. I have these how-to videos where I actually show you what things look like on the graph, how my boat position is. They're very in-depth videos. They're not very long either. Some of them are 3.5 minutes. Some of them are 6.
Yeah.
They're very short videos, but they're right to the point. And they show you actually side by side map graph. So you see my track line going around where I'm fishing. You see my boat positioning, and you get to see me catch a fish, hopefully. Catch fish. But I tell you everything I'm doing while I'm doing it.
Yeah.
I've done that, jerk baits, just about every bait made, and I'm going through the whole library of stuff right now. I try to keep them as seasonal as I can. Like, I'm not going to release something in, May that I did in November.
Yeah.
Although I don't see the downside to it, because it's still an informative video and it's still something you should know.
Yeah.
But I try to keep it very seasonal, so it's very close to what's going on in your area at the time. So when you tune into these videos, there's a set of videos called bait school videos. Those start May 1st, I believe. They'll start airing. And then there's some older ones called Crank It Up, where I'm doing nothing but crankbait stuff. So there's a lot of videos on the LureNet YouTube that you can look at. And then there's some shorter videos that are just one bait specific. Like, I'm punching a mat. Here's 3 choices and why each of these soft plastics donates itself to certain types of vegetation. So these videos are out there. You guys just got to, go look at them. They're fun to do. It's a learning thing. I'm not out there just hammering on fish to show everybody I can catch a bass. Yeah. They're all technique related, and they're all very specific.
Dude, I'm telling you, I'm throwing it out there.
Well,
I don't think anybody's doing this.
We could talk, Mark.
But
we could talk, dude.
I know, dude. But the fans right now, they're all freaking saying, hey, I'd pay to get instruction, get coaching from Uncle Frank.
DM me at Scalish _fishing.
The technology is there. Think about it, man.
Yeah.
You could have a nice, 75-inch flat screen that you could get a really good view.
Oh,
and
dude.
Here, John is using his cell phone, because the technology that we have available now, you use your freaking cell phone, and he's going, okay, I'm doing this. Here's what the area looks like. This is how I'm tying up. This is what I'm using, blah, blah, blah. And, you spend 30 minutes with the dude, and it's live feedback on what he's doing right, or what he or she is doing right, what they're doing wrong. And you get them dialed in for a little 30-minute coaching session, man. I don't think anybody's doing that. Somebody tell me if anybody out there is doing it. I think Uncle Frank is the man.
Got the wheels turning, Mark. They're turning.
Man. I'm telling you, that is the next level. We've went from television shows to YouTube instructional. What's left? The only thing that's left is one-on-one live instruction.
Right. I wish you would have held that back just for another 20 minutes.
Dude, I'm sorry, man, but I'm telling you, if the people want it from Frank Scalish, all right, we can make it happen. Well, now it turns into a time and money deal. Is all it turns into.
Yeah,
now.
We're gonna have to talk about that in detail.
Yeah.
I would love to give the fans and the people that want to actually truly learn something.
Yeah.
Do something really cool and outside the box.
Yeah.
But for the meantime, until we dive into this topic further, go on LureNet YouTube and watch some of my videos.
Yeah.
You'll like them. They're not. It's not fish porn. You're not going to just watch me hammer fish all day. You're going to actually learn something.
Dude, it's like the bowling videos on YouTube. Everybody throws a strike. Well, no, duh. I mean, come on. Well, are you going to throw something out there where you get a 3 count?
Yeah,
No,
exactly.
everybody's
Exactly.
throwing strikes. I'm like, what? Why? How many times did it take you to throw a strike? Oh,
Right.
well,
Hey,
I
show me
just
that 7-10 split, will you?
exactly.
I know. I'm
Failure.
with you. Well, I mean,
Failure. You can
yeah.
learn something from failure.
And look, and in my videos, you'll see me struggle from time to time where
Yeah.
I'm not catching any big giant fish, and you'll probably see the frustration in my face too, because that crawls in my head. If I go out and I don't catch fish, or
Yeah.
at least don't catch them the way I think I should be catching them,
Yeah.
I lose sleep.
We won't get into that. All right.
No, we can't get into that.
We won't get into that. All right, man. Couple other questions real quick. Several people have inquired and want to know, water temperature wise, when is the earliest that you start throwing a Carolina rig?
I've actually thrown the Carolina rig in 50-degree water temperature before. It just depends on if the fish are predicated to bottom feeding. Sometimes in the colder water periods, the fish will suspend and want to feed up.
Yeah.
And in those situations, your Carolina rig is going to be below them. So that's not going to be effective. So you have to know, if you're catching fish on jigs, football jigs, drop shots, or whatever,
Yeah.
your Carolina rig's going to be in range. If you're catching them on jerk baits and stuff, your Carolina rig's going to stay in your rod locker all day, or you're just going to practice casting.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good stuff there. And then somebody said you should frame those lake maps, the Crayola maps, frame them, and then we could auction them off on the Bass Zone for charity.
That's a great idea, except if you guys really saw them, they're pretty crappy.
Still, man, sign them, Frank Scalish. We could auction those things off and utilize, whatever $50 or $100 or whatever it is that somebody's willing to pay for that. Hey, we'll donate it to the charity of your choice. Unless you had plans for the Crayola maps.
They're actually Sharpie maps.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
I graduated from crayons. My wife took them away from me because she said I kept eating them.
Yeah. Oh, geez. So there's a thought, man. I'll splurge and pay for the frames too. Just go to Hobby Lobby, man. They're cheap at Hobby Lobby. All right?
I can do that.
And
we could do a lot. We could do a lot of things. I am an artist. We can do whatever.
You are. Oh, that's another T-shirt right there. I'm an artist, but I can't draw.
I'm an artist. Call Xerox.
Oh, geez, man. I got to tell you, it's so funny that you got two old guys talking about bass fishing, and you break out the Crayolas or Sharpies or whatever it is.
Well, look, truth be told, is I have a portable unit I made for ice fishing, and I can hook my HDS 12 on it. Okay. Yeah. And I was actually going to pull up like legitimate lake maps and everything. And then I was like, it's real cumbersome though to hold in front of the thing. And I'm like, I'm just going to make it simple. I'll just knock a couple contour maps out and be done with it.
Yeah. It was really cool. So we might do that. We might put those up for charity. All right. One final Carolina rig question. A couple of people want to know about, can you discuss why you would fish a Carolina rig up the ledge instead of down the ledge?
Yeah, because sometimes what happens is the way the fish are relating or behaving, sometimes going down the ledge, especially if it's a super steeper break, for whatever the reason, it's not their feeding preference. All I'm doing is trying to appeal to their feeding preference. Yeah. So dragging up sometimes creates more commotion because you're never losing bottom contact the whole time up. And the fish just want it in that direction. It's all about the direction the fish want it. Here, look, I was doing a friend of mine wanted to pre-fish a lake, and I probably already said this story, but this is the only way I could illustrate direction to the best so everyone understands it. We went to pre-fish for a tournament for him, and I pulled up on this point, and I said, you want to see something real cool? And he's like, yeah. I pulled up on it. I said, cast up there, dude. So we cast and cast and cast and cast. I'm casting too. We don't catch a thing. He goes, well, they're not here. And I said, watch this. And I slid my boat on the bank, and I literally beached the boat. I said, now cast out. He casts out. He immediately hooks one. I cast out. I immediately hooked one. Why they wanted it that way, I don't know. You know what I mean? But they wanted it that way. Direction change. They just wanted that direction change. I learned that very, very early on in my structure fishing, is that if there's fish present, then you're not catching them. You have to figure out what you're doing wrong. So I started changing angles, and I would get an angle where I would catch them cast after cast. And the minute I changed angles, I wouldn't catch them anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's always predicated on. Sometimes current, sometimes the fish's mood or attitude. You know what I mean? So just make sure you keep swapping that direction around until you fish that structural element completely, and then bail on it. Don't make 3 casts and go, up, they're not here, I'm out. You know what I mean?
No, man, that's great stuff. And folks, if you have not watched part 1, you definitely need to go back and watch part 1, because you're going to learn a ton. And I can't wait for the first time that I get to try some of the stuff that Frank talked about. And there you have the amazing drawing that we're going to auction off for charity here in the coming weeks. All right, man. Great stuff. 2-part series on Carolina rigging. Can't thank you enough. Please, folks, make sure, continue the feedback. Load up the comments on how much you appreciate Frank, because the dude truly is a genius when it comes to a lot of stuff in the bass fishing world. Those T-shirts are coming too, man.
There's going to be a lot of people that are going to disagree with that statement.
So be it, man. Everybody has an opinion.
I think a few of them live in this house.
Oh.
When your kids become teenagers, then all of a sudden you become very ignorant as a human being.
Very nice.
That's what my dad used to say. He'd say, "Oh, it took you to turn 17 for me to realize what an idiot I am."
Very nice. All right. That's going to wrap the week up, going to wrap today up. I did mention, we talked to Matt. We'll see what he does today, man. He's kind of on something that I think he's going to do extremely well today. So
yeah,
we'll see.
I have a sneaky suspicion.
Yeah. He always finds that golden nugget somewhere. I think he might have found the nugget this week, and I had mentioned it in previous shows. I really thought that this is the week that he could potentially bust out and have a really, really good finish at Pickwick. So we'll see.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed. And I'm not sure if he will be back on Monday, because that's an off week, because the next event that he has is a week later on, I think it's the James River. So
yeah, Tidal River.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he's coming home or going straight there, or what exactly he has planned. So we'll see if he joins us next week. I'm sure he's going to pop in at least one day and give us a scoop on his performance at Pickwick and kind of his early thoughts on the James River. But we'll see how he does this week, and hopefully he will make it to Saturday. That would be cool to see.
Yeah.
The other thing, please, once again, make sure all the stuff that Frank talks about here on Thursdays available on lurenet.com and the paint shop. If you haven't seen the paint shop, it's very, very cool what Frank is doing with a lot of those custom colors that Frank is involved with. And BTL color maybe coming soon, right, Frank? Maybe,
yeah, I got my fingers crossed, dude. I mean, I sent you some paint jobs.
Yeah, it looks great, man. Looks great. I don't know if should I show it on the show one day? I don't know if I should show it or not. I don't want people to see it yet.
I think we got to wait. I think we have to wait. We have to build anticipation.
Yeah, it looks really cool, folks. And it looks like it's definitely going to catch him.
It will.
If I ever get in that situation to use it. Now, I am off tomorrow. All right? I don't have school. I don't have basketball. We don't have a show. Tomorrow, me and my former UPS buddy, he's still my buddy, but we formerly both worked at UPS. He's retired. I'm retired. We're going to Lake X. All right?
Outstanding.
The last time I was at Lake X, we were only out there for a couple hours because that's about all I could take from a stamina and from a standing standpoint. I'm gonna try and get 4 hours tomorrow. I know that's pretty ambitious, but with everything that I've been going through and the advancement that I'm making through PT and all kinds of other things, I think I might be able to get 4 hours in tomorrow. We'll see. But,
perfect.
Dude, I'm telling you right now, it's going to be on fire. Fire!
I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is.
And it has nothing to do with me. It has to do with what time of the year it is. All right? Because pretty much I think that Stevie Wonder could go out there and flip trees or whatever and catch a 2 or 3 pounder. So we'll
just have fun. Yeah. Bring plenty of water.
Yeah.
And keep yourself hydrated. And don't overdo it.
Well, no, and I got to make sure I use color, my favorite color, 7. I'm going to use that one.
Oh my God!
But we'll talk about what happens on Lake X on Monday. Ken Duke going to be the guest host, and then hopefully we can hear from Matt. And then also Monday, as I mentioned, Holly Keene, the official that was with Lee Livesey on the final day, his 42-3. We're going to get her take on what it was like being in the boat when he was throwing down with the topwater.
I can't wait.
So
that's going to be good. That's going to be a good. I want to hear the firsthand knowledge of, the first time she yelled, "Holy!" That's a big one.
Well, kind of like whoever was with Dean Rojas when he did what he did.
Yeah, God.
All right, and I talked to one of the people that was with Paul Elias when he had the 120 at Falcon. Just seeing him catching 8s and 9s and. I mean, that's just that's one of a kind thing, man. You don't get too many opportunities to spend time in the boat when they're throwing those numbers up.
Everything has to be so perfect.
By the way, they said the BTL bait, the color should be called 7.
I love you guys.
That's awesome, man. Hey, the fans have been great today. Thank you for letting me ramble on about the weather and the craziness that took place last night here in Norman, Oklahoma. And, wow, I feel sorry for those people, man. Feel sorry for those dealers, too. I know they have insurance. They don't have anything to sell, dude. Every car destroyed. But that's what I'm going to do tomorrow, man. I'm going to get after it. I'm going to destroy them on the water tomorrow. That's the plan.
You have fun, dude.
All right, folks. Great show. Make sure you check out the first one. And Ken Duke and myself will be back on Monday. And everybody out there, be safe. And thank you so much for being a BTL fan and be a fan of Frank Scalish. We're back at it next week. Everybody, be safe. That's it. We're out of here.